This is Tuesday morning, and this is August the 12th. Yes, I should have looked at that and remembered that before I even started, but here we go. So, we're going to be in Nehemiah 3:15 through 5:13 today. And what a great story. I get so excited whenever I hit Nehemiah, probably like I do whenever I get the other Bible stories too, because they're all so good. But I love this with all of the challenges that that the people faced, and especially Nehemiah coming there and just taking charge with God. I mean, God's directing all of this, and the obstacles and bumps in the road are just crazy. And so we're going to read about that today, as well as in First Corinthians uh, 7. So if you would put your prayer request and your praise reports in the chat box, and we will celebrate with you, and we will pray for you as we write them down. So this is an exciting day to get to read this. So let's jump in there. But I want to start with a little snippet out of my Bible. Now we know after reading yesterday, beginning yesterday, I don't know if you're like me, but I have to go in and highlight certain things. And after I saw all of these gates and all of the names of them, I just started highlighting them so they would pop out when I was looking at it. It helps me picture, what maybe this whole wall gate with all of these people all around it doing stuff. And so in all, there were 10 gates. And so my note says, although the walls surrounding Jerusalem protected the city, the gates kept it open for life. The wall around Jerusalem included 10 gates that needed attention during the construction under Nehemiah. They were also significant reference points that identified work areas as assigned to different groups. And so I like that, and you'll see why. So let's get into this, and thank you all for joining me this morning. All of my great friends, Debbie, Leslie, Lynn, Nancy, and Tina. So let's go for it. So we start out with the fountain gate was repaired, and it tells who it was repaired by: the leader of the Mitzvah district. He rebuilt it, roofed it, set up its doors, and installed its bolts and bars. Then he repaired the wall of the pool asylum near the king's garden and rebuilt the wall as far as the stairs. Look how much they're having to do. So it's not just the gate. I mean, it's the whole wall. And everything apparently is in crumbles. So this is showing, as we read this, all of the people that Nehemiah pulled together. It's the need for believers to work together to accomplish something. This is such a large project, not one or a small group of people could accomplish it. But whenever you gather everybody and get them motivated and interested, it changes everything. So this work that's done on this wall and gates is a reflection on the family. This was evidence of Nehemiah's leadership. And so he, if this was where you lived, he assigned it to you. Fix the wall, the gate, by your home, whatever that looked like there. and and on down it talks about another leader. Let's see. I'll go ahead and say his name. Hashabiah, the leader of the half district Kaliah, who supervised the building of the wall on behalf of his own district. See, it changes everything whenever you've got people buying into this. This is where you live. This is what you are responsible for. And it changes It shouldn't, but it does change the work the people do. And then look at verse 20 next to this person. And so they're going to start naming all of the people that lived along that wall. Next to him was Baruch, who zealously repaired an additional section from the angle of the door to the house of Eliashib, the high priest. Now, his zeal for the city of God fueled his work. He was so anxious, he did that plus some. And that's the beauty of this. Whenever we've been involved in a project with other people, it doesn't take you long to get what you're assigned to done, and that's where you jump in and help somebody else, and then it just gets everybody motivated to continue and do more. And then to verse 23, after them, then here's Benjamin and Hashbub repaired the section across from their house, and repaired the section across from his house. This was another one. So see, this was a great plan that Nehemiah had to pull everybody into uh, making it personal. So, and I circled his own house, his own house. Every time it said that, it was a individual thing, but yet it was teamwork. So now then, let's jump into chapter 4. What happens? Oh man, what happens when things are going good and somebody is not liking that? Here's Sanballat. Sanballat was very angry whenever he learned that we were rebuilding the wall. Now, he and Tobiah sought to bring discouragement. And you know what? People can be really skilled if you've got a superpower and it's criticism, but you know, don't do that. Here's this guy. That's his superpower, criticism. And he brought discouragement through that. And so one measure of leadership, and this would be like for Nehemiah, is to understand that, oh, it is criticism, and not to allow one to be run down by the critical nature of things, but still be sensitive to God's voice in the midst of criticism. There might be, if in the event there's some truth in there, you want to realize that. But you know what? When somebody is jumping in there with all of their, here's what you should do, boy, isn't it hard to listen to? It's really hard to listen for me to listen to that. And then it says he flew into a rage and mocked the Jews, saying in front of his friends and the Samaritan army officers. Now, this is the first time that Samaritan is used in the Bible. What does this bunch of poor, feeble Jews think they're doing? Now, look how he's being a little sarcastic, would you say? He's everybody knows how he feels about it just by those few words. Do they think they can build a wall in a single day just by offering a few sacrifices? Do they actually think they can make something of stones from a rubbish heap and charred ones at that? See, they had burned everything, and so that just took away the strength of the bricks and everything. But Nehemiah has been standing in obedience to God. And when you stand in obedience to God, you can expect opposition. If you have no opposition, then you need to do a heart check to see if you're even in obedience to God. Nehemiah prays. He says, hear us, our God, for we are being mocked. May their scoffing fall back uh, on their own heads, and may they themselves be captives in a foreign land. Do not ignore their guilt. Do not blot out their sins, for they have provoked you to anger here in front of the builders. Do you see what he says there? They've provoked you. This is God's project. And Sanballat and his group are critical, degrading, and everything of the people. So Nehemiah is not praying for revenge, but that God's justice would be carried out. And this is something that I'm learning as we should be learning something new all through our entire life. But as I experience new family fun things or issues, or I'm learning how to pray different, or for my friends, for the jail ministry, for our church. There's just some things that it's God knows what to do. We just need to pray and talk to him about it. So this Nehemiah's response was a great example. No debates, no committees. He didn't even deal with the two enemies. He didn't send anybody to go talk to Sanballat at all. He just took it to God. What an awesome thing. Stop complaining to everybody about what somebody else has said, and take it to God. Pray about it. If we're angry or have a real enemy, start praying. Never for revenge or to have evil fall on them, but just turning them over to a good and just God, because he knows exactly what to do with them. And your prayer for that person is in part of God's plan for that person. Could you just imagine somebody that's being sarcastic or critical to you when they find out you've been praying for them? That would certainly be humbling. Okay, so verse 6, he says, at last the wall was completed to half its height around the entire city, for the people had worked with enthusiasm. They had set their hearts and minds on accomplishing a task. I mean, they're motivated, and everybody is out there. It's like a party around the wall. They didn't lose faith and they didn't give up. If God has called you to a task, determined to complete it. Now, you hear me say determined to do that. When you get up every morning, do you determine to do God's will? Do you determine to whatever you're facing? And I thought about that as I was reading and studying this morning. If I was had an addiction that I was trying to get off of, and I was thinking about some people that I know, and I determined every day not to fall prey to that addiction today, just keep me walking away from that today. See, that's predetermining your mind and heart. I want to predetermine that I will function in God's will today. I want to predetermine. And then you've already won most of that battle. Whenever you know what to expect, when you know, then you've already got the scriptures lined out. You've already got everything. But today's reading should help you go through everything today. Verse 9 says, but we prayed to our God and guarded the city day and night to protect ourselves, because there was that conspiracy to attack. Sanballat, I skipped 7 and 8, but they're getting all in their business. So then the people of Judah began to complain. The workers are tired. There's so much rubble to be moved. We'll never be able to build the wall by ourselves. So here comes a little bit of discouragement. I say a little bit. There was certainly a lot. but it doesn't take long that at the end of the party day, there's some grumblers because they didn't get to be part of the section that they wanted to be in. They were thirsty. They didn't get to stop. I mean, things. It doesn't take long for a good thing to become normal. Then all of a sudden, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's kind of what that was. Verse 11, it says, "Meanwhile, our enemies were saying, before they know what's happening, we'll swoop down on them and kill them and end their work." Now, this is just still a lot of words. But Nehemiah says, "So I placed armed guards behind the lowest parts of the wall. In the exposed areas, I stationed the people to guard by families, armed with swords, spears, and bows. Then I looked at the situation, and here's what he said to them. Verse 14, in the second part of that, don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord who is great and glorious, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes." Highlight that one, because so many of us, I know, are fighting for our family. This happened to be a big construction project, but still the enemy pokes his ugly head in everything that God's people are involved in to do the discouragement. And sometimes it doesn't take much for us to just give up. This isn't worth the battle. But you know what? It is worth the battle. Anytime that we're doing stuff for the Lord, the reward in God's kingdom will be amazing. One of my notes that I wrote down was Nehemiah could have done nothing. He could have panicked, but he wisely and calmly trusted God in the midst of the storm and did what God would have him to do to obtain the victory. What kind of a battle is it if it's easy to fight and an easy win? I mean, like, anybody can do that. But whenever you're battling something so big that you don't even know how you can possibly come ahead of this, and you're praying that, God, show me what to do today. Show me how to navigate through this. I am determining to follow your will. I am determining to stand on this word today. I am determining to not be afraid, because you are great and glorious, and you fight for us. You have already won the victory. You can stand on that, and you can go all day long. So continuing on the work was victory. It says in 15, when our enemies heard that we knew of their plans and that God had frustrated them, we all returned to our work on the wall. That attack didn't prevent progress. Oh, I'm losing my notes. That would be awful. The Lord, or the kingdom of God, is built both on a sword and a trowel. The sword to come against every spiritual force of wickedness, and a trowel to do the work of building up the people. So when you think about the ones that had a sword in one hand and a trowel in the other, I mean, the sword, that's just like you going out and you've got your Bible. This is your sword. And you're going out and about, and you'll slay those dragons with this. This is so good. Just be ready. I need to move on. But towards the end of verse 4, he says, the work is spread out and we're widely separated from each other along the wall. When you hear the blast of a trumpet, rush to wherever it is sounding. then our God will fight for us. So just be ready. Be clothed. Be clothed in righteousness of Jesus. Always wear your armor of God. Be ready for that trumpet to blast, because he's going to gather us all together. Chapter 5, there's no mention of work on the wall, because the enemy has determined to have a different attack, a surprise attack, and this one happens to be financial. Nobody has anything to eat. I mean, it's getting tough out there. Then what do? When it's hard and you're working hard and the food is getting thin, there's just not much around. And then verse 7, it says, after thinking it over, I spoke out against these nobles and officials. I told them, you're hurting your own relatives by charging interest. They've been borrowing money and having interest charged. But one little thing I wanted to point out on that statement was, after thinking about it, Nehemiah would have prayed. It doesn't say that there, but we know that he is a prayer warrior, and God's directing him, and he doesn't just do a knee-jerk reaction on stuff. After thinking it over. Now, sometimes I have to stop and process stuff too, because my first initial thought will probably be negative. But maybe if I think it over, it will change my thought process, and I will, then and praying about it, there will be a different solution that other than my carnal nature will come up with. So read this today. Is so good and inspiring, and I know that it will speak to you just like it did me. I want to jump on into 1 Corinthians 7, and this is verse 25 to the end of the chapter. And so now Paul is talking about marriage, and here we begin with the unmarried and the widowed. And so he starts in 25 saying, now concerning the betrothed. Now this is I've got my ESV Bible here, and the NLT, New Living Translation, talks about the young women, and it will also say virgins. So this is about the virgins / betrothed / the young women. And so he's dealing with a question apparently has been asked about the virgins, and he gives his thoughts. Now see, in verse 4 it says, I have no command from the Lord, but I give my judgment as one who by the Lord's mercy is trustworthy. See, he's got the spiritual discernment to be able to answer and talk to them about other things that isn't specifically addressed. And so there would be some kind of problem in Corinth because of this distress. Paul says there are definite advantages to remaining single. So Paul has dealt with lots of life situations on a case-by-case basis. There's so much going on in this community that you probably couldn't write every single thing down. But there's one thing that you can always count on. What is God's will for marriage? What does God say? Simply, it's a man and a woman for life. It says, I think that in view of the present distress, it's good for a person to remain as he is. Are you bound to a wife? Don't seek to be free. Are you free from a wife? Don't seek a wife. But if you do marry and have not sinned, if a betrothed woman marries, she has not sinned. Yet those who marry will have worldly troubles, and I spare you that. So, we know that if we have to take care of our family, our husband, or our wife, if you're uh, and I say a man and a woman together, just clarifying that. But there's always distractions in a marriage. If you don't have to take care of the family, you're taking care of your church family. So he goes on about the world. The world is passing away. So he says, this is what I mean. The appointed time has grown very short. From now on, let those who have wives live as though they had none. From now on, let those who have wives live as though they had none, and those who mourn as though they were not mourning, and those who rejoice as they were not rejoicing, and those who buy as they had no goods. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And sometimes that's a little wordy, but there's nothing solid and lasting in this world. Its nature is to pass away. We will take nothing with us. And that's where he says this world is passing away. I want you to be free from anxieties. And so most anxieties come from another person, just because they've said something to you, they've acted unexpected, something they've done something that you uh, you know didn't see coming. But more like an unmarried man is anxious about the things of the Lord and how to please him. But the married man is anxious about worldly things and how to please his wife. And his interests are divided. I guess that's what I've been trying to say. So Paul is talking about and recognizing that when a person doesn't have a family responsibility, then they're more free to serve God. That's why he considered unmarried state to be preferable for himself. We don't have a record of Paul having been married, or he was married and his wife passed away. We don't have that. All we know is that he is single. And then it's the same for the women. Uh, so if God has a mate for you, now this is what I want to say, because I know that there's a lot of people that are desiring to be married, and sometimes they jump into that before they really should. It may not be the person that God had for you. You just grabbed the first one that walked by and smiled. And this is men or women. But if God has a mate for you, he knows how to bring the two of you together. You don't have to work hard to do that. Don't take things into your own hands. Wherever you are, whatever your situation is, use this time to grow mentally and spiritually. And that way, the mate that he's bringing to you will see that you're like-minded because you're working for the Lord. And then you have a mate that is also doing the same. 30 down to 37, it says, but whoever is firmly established in his heart, being under no necessity but having desire under control, has determined this in their heart, to keep her as his betrothed, and he will do well. So see, that word or that statement, has determined in his heart, who has firmly established in his heart. This can apply to so many things. And this is just a choice of will, because that person isn't going to change their mind. We have to determine in our heart who we're going to serve. And we have to stand firm on that. God does honor the single state, but he hates all sexual immorality, and he will judge it. What does God say about the man and the woman, the marriage bed? It's sacred. And then towards the end, verse 39, this begins a couple of verses about remarriage of widows. The wife is bound to her husband as long as he lives, but if he dies, she's free to be married to whom she wishes. And then, what does it say? Only in the Lord. So that widow or widower, has right to remarry. But a Christian widow, like any Christian, is really only free to marry another Christian, only in the Lord. So the Moody Bible Commentary says this is the strongest New Testament verse supporting the idea that Christians should marry only other Christians. Yet in my judgment, she is happier if she remains single, basically. And I think that I too have the Spirit of God. In 2 Peter 1:21, for no prophecy was ever produced by the will of man, but men spoke from God as though they were carried along by the Spirit. And this is what Paul had said earlier, and then he finishes up chapter 7 with that. And so, my time is up, but just remember this. If you need marriage to be happy, you'll never be happy. Serving Christ is our calling. Marriage is our responsibility. And servant leadership. Servant leadership does not mean you get coffee for everybody, but that you would get coffee for anybody. Just a few little nuggets there to throw in. So thank you for joining me today. And Tony will be here at noon.